This is part 3 for unwrapping our robot, and we should be able to finish up this model in this last lecture, but I'm going to have to work fast. So I'm going to start with the eye socket, because currently we have two objects here. We have the head and the eye socket, and I'd kind of like to have all this stuff joined back together sooner than later. So let's go ahead and focus on just these right now. The back sides of these eyes are pretty much going to be just straight unwrapped. So I'm going to select both of those and just do an unwrap on that. I didn't need to mark any seams or anything, but I am going to go in here and snap these islands together. So go grab those, snap them together, select all, turn off my snapping, and scale this down in size. So what we're going to want to do is associate this with a UV grid. And then let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got. So the back side is pretty much done. I could do the rest of this with follow active quads, but I'm going to have to go ahead and mark a seam on the bottom here. So let's go ahead and do that next. Mark seam. I'm going to temporarily hide the faces so that I can link select this, and it'll be a lot easier. You'll see in just a second. So let's go ahead and hide those. And we're going to focus on one of these sockets at a time. So using our face selection tool, select any one of the faces and then select linked to select the rest of that eye socket. So what I need to do is reset the UVs on this before I start, and then I can go ahead and do a follow active quads on that. I'm going to do the other one first before I rescale or move any of this stuff around so that I can keep them exactly the same size. Notice that I have this face selected. I'm going to do just the opposite. I'm going to select this one. So I'm selecting symmetrically the same face. So the inside face right there. Select linked, U, reset, U, follow active quads. And let's select all now and grab one of these islands. And I'm going to snap that to the other island over there. So I need to turn on my vertex snapping. Select all. Let's turn off this magnet for now. Put that back on increment and pack islands. You'll notice that it separated everything again. That's fine. And I'm kind of going back and forth here. I just want to make sure that these get stacked on top of each other. So grab that again and snap it. Go ahead and turn vertex snapping back off again. And basically all I want to do is just select all of this, scale it down in size. Probably help if I could see what it looks like here. Let's unhide what we've got hidden there. Probably select all of this. A good idea probably is to average islands so we can at least proportionally get them about the same. Put them together in the same neighborhood. Select all of that, just grab it and put it off to the side somewhere. I'm going to put it over here. And I think we're ready to move on to the next piece. So let's go back to object mode, unhide the hidden robot. So I'm going to select the eye sockets and hide them. Select the robot and go into edit mode. And I'm going to focus on just the robot's head right now. So that's the reason why I hid the eye sockets. Hide everything else. And let's get this head unwrapped. I'm going to treat this just like the other boxes and basically edge select these pairs. So use my edge selection tool and basically go and pre-select all of these pairs of edges like this. And then starting from the front with the faces, just go and deselect all the areas that we know fold over. So this definitely folds. It folds down here. It folds over here. And over here. And those are the most obvious ones. I also want it to fold around to the back side of the head over the top. When it folds around to the bottom, it's going to skip past this edge and we're going to treat the next edge as the seam. Same thing when we roll over this way, it's going to skip past this edge and the next edge is going to be its seam. Same thing over here. It'll fold over this edge and that will be the seam. When it rolls over the top, there's only one seam left, so that's pretty obvious that that needs to remain. Okay, so let's go ahead and mark all of that as seams. And basically what we want to do next is get rid of these edges here in the middle of all these islands. That's easy to do. I can select this entire loop and clear seam. Now of course there was nothing to do in this area, but it did clear all the seams everywhere else. And that's pretty much done. We're going to go ahead and unselect the seams on this so that these fold over as flaps. And I think we're done. So let's go ahead and unwrap the robot head. Looks nice and clean. And I'm just going to grab all of this and move it up here. Okay, let's move on to the next piece. So unhide everything else. And we're going to be focusing on just the eyes. And really there isn't much to do on the eyes, so I'm not going to bother hiding anything. All I really need to do is just unwrap them. Let's go over to the UV area and stack these together using vertex snapping. So put them together like that. Go ahead and turn this off. Select all, scale the whole thing down, grab it and move it off to the side. We're ready to move on to the next piece. So let's go back to object mode and unhide the eye sockets. Now it's okay to join these together because we've handled the head, we handled the eyes, we unwrapped the eye sockets. This whole region is pretty much done, so now it's safe to select all and join. I'm going to go ahead and name this guy Robot at this point because I don't plan on separating any more pieces or anything like that. I'm going to name this Robot as well. So both of those are Robot, and that will carry over into Unity. You'll appreciate having named those later. Okay, back into edit mode, and you can see that all of this stuff looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and unwrap the antenna next. Hide everything else. And if you remember, we set up that little straw hole on top. So this thing, all we really need to do is go to the back edge, mark a seam here, and then go to the front, use face selection and select one of these faces, and then select all. Go over here, reset our UVs. Might as well do this over here in this window, and then do a follow active quads. Pack islands so it's smaller, and we're probably going to need to scale this on the Y so we can fix the checkerboarding to about, basically what I should be looking at is a front view of this, and specifically probably ortho is better. And look at these squares and come over here and scale this on the Y and just try to make them look more square like in the middle, and that should fix that for the most part. They look more elongated over here. This could probably be improved. I'm not going to spend the time because I don't have enough time to finish all this in one lecture, but you basically get the idea here. So let's go ahead and unhide that. And one thing I forgot to do was let's go back over to the UV editing window, select all of this and pack it into the islands so that they're smaller checkerboards, and then scale it down and move it somewhere off to the side. So I think I'll move this up here for now. There's really only a couple of pieces left. We have the arms, the panel, and the button. Let's do the panel and button next because those are going to go pretty quick and easy. So select linked, hide everything but that. Let's zoom in on it. And basically all we really want to do here is edge select all of these corners like this, all these edges along the corners. And then mark those as seams. Jump over to the UV editing window, select all and unwrap. And I think that this is actually just good to go like that. I'm going to grab that, move it off to the side. Let's go back and do the next piece, which is going to be this orb here. And I don't really even need to go and hide that or anything. Just do an unwrap. You don't need any seams. Let's scale it down, grab it, move it off to the side. I'm going to select all and just make sure that these aren't on top of each other like that. Alright, back to the default. And finally the last part is the arms. So select linked on the arms, hide everything else. We're going to have to work on one arm at a time, and this probably is going to be a little tricky. Now I tried to do this once already and I discovered that there were still some double edges that I need to get rid of. So the first thing I'm going to do is go and deal with that. I discovered this the hard way the first time I had some trouble, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure it out, but inevitably it ended up being that this little edge right here needed to be dissolved. And I think that edge is present on all of these sides here, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing all the way around. You'll notice that this is made up entirely of quads. However, I tried to use the follow active quads on this and it failed. It might have been because of those double seams, I'm not sure, but I did find another solution for this, and I'm going to show you that solution right now. So I basically marked both of these inside edges on the back side of the robot's arms. So this is the front, by the way. This is front view. So we're selecting those two edges right there. Mark those as seams. I'm going to focus on one of these at a time just to make it easier. Zoom in on this claw hand over here. And basically all four of these edges right here will be marked as a seam. And then of course you want to get this little piece right here and this piece down the middle. So all of that's going to be marked. I'm going to do the same exact thing on the other side. We're looking for these edges right here, these little connecting pieces right here, and the one in the middle. Mark all of that as a seam. And let's go over to our UV editing window, select all, and unwrap. From here I was able to figure out that there was some stretching going on. If I turn this tool on, the keep UV in edit mode mesh selection in sync, boy, what a name. Just turn that on so that I can select edges over here. Then I can go in here and select all of these edges to relief cut and reduce this stress in here. I'm going to leave this one unselected, and basically I'm selecting these edges and these edges so that there's a passageway in the middle. Same thing down here. Select that one and that one. Skip this one and select both of those. Repeat. And repeat again. Go ahead and mark all of those as seams. Select all. Before I unwrap, let's go ahead and get a clear view here. Okay, now let's go ahead and unwrap. So it opened that up really nice, and there's a lot less stretching. It looks pretty good, and I think I'm good to go on these arms. So now everything except for the neck and these two little cylinders on the legs is unwrapped. Those are actually very easy to do. So let's just select a little piece of each one of those so that we can link select the rest and hide everything else. Now I can come in here. Let's go into back ortho, use my edge selection, and mark a seam down the middle of the back of all of these. You can do all of these at the same time. Mark seam. And now let's go over to the front side, and one at a time we'll do a follow active quads on these. So we'll start over here, select linked. We should probably do this in the UV editing window. So select linked and reset. Don't forget to do that first. Follow active quads. Okay. I'm not going to rescale any of this until I'm all finished. I'm going to do all three and then scale them afterwards. So front view again, I'm going to select this one. Notice that it's the inside. There's two middle faces here. It's the one that's on the inside nearest to the blue line. So with that selected, go ahead and link select. Open up your UV mapping menu, and then don't forget to reset, and then follow active quads. All this stuff is being piled up on top of each other, but don't worry about that for right now. So I had selected this one the first time, and this time I'm going to select it over here. Select linked, reset, follow active quads. Select all, pack islands. I'm not sure why these are different sizes, so boy, I'm always surprised when stuff like this happens. So these two are basically the same. I need to figure out the orientation of both of those. So I'm going to select all and put the grid on here. It looks like the grid is already on there. What I want is the color grid so I can tell the directionality of these things. So it looks like they're both going in the right direction. So all I really need to do is just grab them and snap them together using my vertex snapping. Just like that. This is only one island, so I'm just going to go and grab that and move it off to the side. Now there's no reason why they have to be sideways, so I think what I'm going to do is rotate them 90 degrees. This is why I have the letters and numbers on them. I want the letters and numbers to be facing up, which now they are. And just bring it over here and grab it and move it. Well, by the way, I want to change this to UV grid. And now that we have this all unwrapped, let's go ahead and unhide everything. And it's time to actually pack those island scales. So if I did my job right, everything should be separated here. These two islands here, this is the arms. If I wanted to paint on both of those at the same time, notice that this one and this one, they're opposite of each other. You can see kind of this shape right here and this shape are mirror image of each other. So what I could do is scale this on the Y by -1 so that they're going in the same direction. Of course, the letters and numbers will be backwards, but this will line up better this way. I'd have to rotate it to make it work. So what I'm talking about is if I put the UV color grid on there, you'll see that they're backwards on one side and forward on the other. See B8 and F8. So that's what I just did. I scaled that on the Y by -1. If you don't want that to be backwards, like if you were planning on putting some texture on there that really needed to be red in one direction, like something with some words or numbers or something on it, then you wouldn't want to scale that backwards like that. But if you were putting like graphics on it that didn't really make any difference if it was forward or backwards, then you could get away with scaling this on the Y by -1 and then figuring out how to stack these islands together. This is going to save some texture space, and it's also going to make it so that you have a little less painting to do. So let me go and iron this out, and we'll see if we can snap these together. Ultimately, what I'm trying to do is rotate this just right so that I can stack these together. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's pretty close, and I think I could paint on that and do a good job. Let's go ahead and put that checkerboard pattern back on there. And I think let's average island scale. And now we can go ahead and drop all this stuff together in this texture map. So I'm going to scale all this down first of all. Probably going to base it all on this big huge thing right here. So I'm going to put that inside the texture and kind of look around. If it seems like you still need to make it smaller, this is your opportunity to kind of scale everything down all at once. By having everything selected and scaling simultaneously, you're able to preserve the aspect of all of this checkerboarding. Now it's time to go in here and actually try to make this stuff fit. And this is kind of like working with the pieces of a puzzle, so I'll do most of this off camera. That was a little bit of work. It took me a few minutes to plan this all out. If I spent the time, I could pack this in really tight. But I think this is good enough for this lecture. So that concludes the robot. So the next model we're going to be dealing with is a gun, or a laser gun. And that should be kind of fun to work with. So how'd you do? Did you basically come up with the same thing? Hopefully you're starting to get a feel for this now. We have a couple of more models to go. The gun is coming up next. If you have any questions, be sure to use the discussions. If you texture map this thing and you want to share screenshots of your finished model, you can also drop that in the discussions and I'll leave you some feedback, and I'm sure other students might chime in as well. So have fun with this, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Good luck.